So good evening, friends. Let me thank my friends in Vigyan Bharati for giving me this opportunity not to talk to you, but talk to each other. And what are we going to talk to each other? About our common concerns. Why is that we are not able to meet face to face and talk to each other? Why is that we are using this medium of relating to each other through digital platform? Because for the last few weeks, maybe 4 months, the whole world is stunned, is shocked. We don't know what has hit us. Because if I come and hit you with an object in my hand, you know what is that hit him or hit you. But when something like this hits us, we even don't know what it is. But when something hits me physically, the impact can be felt, and I can know from my past experience if I was hit before that this is what must have hit me. But it seems today we are all facing a kind of problem. We nobody know what the problem is. In a sense, we all know that this is first was thought to be a disease, then epidemic, now pandemic. We also know, luckily, the name of the disease, name of the pandemic. We are given the name. It's a virus. And there are different theories which have been people are working on that what could be the cause of this virus. As I said, in normal times we would have met each other. But the virus is so deadly that we cannot even move out. We cannot meet each other. There are funerals which have been conducted through these such platforms. What happened? And we are therefore facing a challenge which is unprecedented. None of us, none of our generation, in a century or more, have experienced anything like this. And we're talking about theories. So various people are working on theories. What could be the reason for it? The scientists are spending rather sleepless nights trying to decipher it. There are theories like whether it was an issue related to biosafety. Somebody says, was it done deliberately? Did it originate from animal and came to man, a human, or from one animal to another animal as an intermediary, and then the virus was affecting humans? Many theories. But let us look at, and this is not a scientist that I am, therefore I cannot speak as a scientist, though I don't want to even pretend to be one. But I would like to look at it from a different angle. Like you say, it is better to err on the right side. Just imagine, it's not that there have never been such instances in the past. There have been plagues, there have been different kind of influenzas. People have died for many reasons in a huge numbers. That's a history of human life. But something dramatic has changed in the last few decades. maybe last few centuries. And that is the nature is taken for granted. There was a time when, and we are all reading Homo sapiens, there was a time when man was always trying to conquer nature. This was a fight between man and nature. And when you say nature, man was trying to fight animals, man was trying to fight different kinds of originations from nature. It was trying to fight to survive. And that's the basic instinct all of us have been given by the nature itself. So sometimes, in philosophical way, I'm saying, people say, if God is the creator of everything, and God therefore is also creator of a thought in my own mind, and if I act on that thought and do something wrong, I'm not responsible, God is responsible. Philosophically, yes. But of course, that's a different matter of the fallacy of this theory. How God is not responsible, but let's not go into that. So I'm saying, why I was saying this parallel was that one can say that human beings' instinct of destroying nature is also a part of a nature, because nature has created all the living beings with a most overwhelming desire is to survive. Therefore, I can claim that I was doing it for my survival. I was killing animals because otherwise they would attack me, and therefore I was killing them. I was destroying forest because there could be a forest fire and that would destroy me. I was destroying and try to tame the rivers. Of course, it's a different matter. You cannot tame a river. But I was trying to work on that, thinking that the floods that they come in will destroy me. So it was part of my instinct to survive. I was trying to control the nature. But just imagine, as I was saying, from the early years of human life on this planet, we have been doing this. But never in the known human history we have ever done anything like what we are doing today to the nature. The loss of biodiversity, the huge impact of all the changing pattern of weather, not necessarily because of normal cyclical changes, but triggered by human action. And the effect of that is just unimaginable. When you try to play with a small little thing and you don't know the impact that is going to have on other things, you can meet with a disastrous consequences. When I was a child, my grandmother used to tell me a story that a monkey sees a carpenter working and wants to teach the carpenter. That's a monkey's nature. So he goes and start playing with his instruments, his tools, and in the process gets trapped into what the carpenter has set for himself. Then he's not able to remove his tail and he's stuck. Why? Because carpenter knew the entire functioning of that tool. What is he doing? Monkey didn't know it. Monkey thought it's so simple, let me just tinker with it, and got into the trap. This is precisely what is happening today. Without a weather pattern, the entire nature cycle is something which you are trying to tinker with by doing something here and there without knowing the consequence. It will have an overall impact. The fires or deforestation that's happening in Amazon, thousands of kilometers away from India, or even thousands of kilometers away from Australia, will have a consequences on the entire ecosystem. The oceans are, many of them are connected to each other. So is the entire ecosystem is connected to each other. Can you ever say that sky This is my sky and this is your sky. We do that many times, saying that you have entered my boundary because this is my aerial boundary, you are entered into it. We sometimes say that this is my ocean's boundary, you are entered into my ocean boundary because we are created artificially. But it's not true. The skies are related to connected to one another. Oceans are connected to one another. Ecosystem is connected to one another. So today, the scientists are finding out what is the cause of coronavirus. And now we have given it a name, COVID-19. We are struggling to find out what is it, why it started, what is the cause of it. And as I said, let me again repeat, I am not a scientist. So I'm not making a scientific assessment of it. But very clearly it looks like that we are heading for it. Bill Gates might have said that pandemic is going to come. There are other virologists which have said that new virus might emerge. But one thing is here, that we don't need a scientist to tell us that something extraordinary is going to happen. What it will result into, what will manifest into this tinkering with the nature, we didn't know, probably. Because nobody can know. Because we thought that we know everything about nature, but that was a fallacy. That was our own stupidity as human beings, that we thought we know everything. And now the shock which has hit us, what has hit us, we don't know, is now giving us time to introspect and think. Is it something which could have happened because this virus which went from animal to man, or where, or even if it was deliberate or by mistake, something happened in laboratory which changed it? The disastrous consequences are known. But what is the cause of it? That either we are trying to create in laboratory something which nature is doing normally. Nature always balances. If it creates a species, it also creates all that species needs to survive, and it is part of an ecosystem. Then the nature is also worried that one species should not outgrow others. It should not exponentially increase the number, which will cause and destroy the balance of nature. So it creates another species which will eat that species and ensure that the balance is maintained. But also, nature is very careful that other species which has been created, the coronavirus or the herbivirus, which will not be eating everything. So another appended species is created, and that's how the entire ecosystem is created. The food chain is properly created. Everything gets enough to eat. That's the law of nature. Not a species which has been created has ever been created by nature which doesn't have enough to eat, and enough to eat in a place where that species is born. There are certain fruits which we call seasonal fruits now. Nature has made that arrangement. If you go to a forest, you will see that there are certain species which needs at a time of they giving birth to their own progeny, the kind of food they will be required is available there. Like in human beings, when there is a pregnant woman, she feels like eating something. So we always buy it from the market and give it to her. But nature has even made that provision. So nature has made all arrangement necessary, and all species are created in such a way that they will be taking care of each other. Now, what has happened in the last few decades and centuries, as I said, that indiscriminately, irrationally, we have taken some species out of nature. Today we are experiencing malaria. So what do you do with that? We get a lot of chemicals to kill the mosquitoes. Nature had made arrangement for that. There were frogs, there were lizards, there were many others which will be properly ensuring that they will not be he will be born for a particular function. But mosquitoes' function probably was not to go and bite the human beings the way they are doing today. Because the entire nature cycle is when everybody is acting indiscriminately and what was not intended by nature. Because we ourselves are responsible. We have played with the nature in such a way. So today, again going back to the cause of corona, whatever it is, scientists will prove, and it's their domain. One thing sure, that lack of biodiversity, the lack of natural habitat for those who are provided with something. There were certain insects, certain animals, certain plants, all of them were provided certain habitat as well as a place for them to survive. Since this has been disturbed, the loss of habitat is resulting into loss of biodiversity resulting into certain extraordinary things happening. And maybe we can get something like this happening in future. There is a terrestrial biodiversity, there is a biodiversity in oceans, marine biodiversity on land, both are now getting disturbed. So if you want to really ensure that we don't have anything like the catastrophe that we are facing today, the best way, the playing safe, I was repeating again, I was saying, erring on the right side, is by doing, go back to the real fundamental rules of nature. Do we know all the rules of nature? We knew. When? Thousands of years ago. When the first human being was started roaming on the planet, he had to know the rules. If I come into a city, I will follow your rules because I know I can speak in Mumbai and Delhi freely because it's being my fundamental right. But if I go to Dubai, I would not speak it because I know I will be arrested and put in the jail. So I know rules of that place. So I've tried to follow the rules to survive. Because I come there voluntarily. So the human beings came, there were a lot of animals before them. It's already a huge animal kingdom. There was a vegetation, there was all kinds of insects, there was a huge kingdoms, far, far bigger, far, far more than in human beings. So they realized that they have to survive in harmony with them. Because please allow me so that I can leave. Like I go to Dubai, I'll say, oh, the sheikh is coming, please, because I want to take a job, please help. So we followed that rule of nature. So today, when I'm saying we must go back to the back, do we know the rules? We can. But for that, we'll have to unlearn a lot of things. If you want to learn something, I have to unlearn something. I only limited glass. I want to take a tea in the glass, then I have to empty it out of water. I cannot take tea and water at the same time when the glass is full with one of the fluid. So we want to learn something about a nature, we must unlearn something first. What we try to claim to be the knowledge, that we feel we are so great, we know everything. Just imagine the country, the biggest economy of the world, 24 trillion dollars of economy. Out of $89 trillion of global economy, the country which has got highest GDP is United States. The best scientists, the biggest army. They claim that I can start a war by just pushing a button. I don't want to even send my army or my planes or nothing. I can just push button and the war will start. I can kill millions. That was their thinking. What happened? The highest number of deaths today are in US, and I feel very sorry for it. I love America in many ways, but I'm not trying to say anything against somebody. I'm just trying to say That the biggest power with money, with army, money, military, science, technology, education institution, best of talent from the world goes to America because that's their policy used to be at least before to get best of the brains from any part of the world. They cannot even fight it because, as I said, we thought we know everything. As human race, it's nothing to do with nationality. It is nothing to do with geography. All humanity is suffering today. The world wars, first and two, they never, of course, there were not so many countries at that time anyway. But the World War One and Two are never fought in all parts of the world. It was not fought in remote areas of the world. But today, this COVID or Corona has hit more or less all the countries of the world, barring maybe very, very few. And I hope best for them. What does it mean? That we thought that I belong to a country, I'm superior to you, you are inferior to me, you are white skinned, I'm black skinned, you are brown skinned, I'm taller than you, I'm stronger than you, I have more money. All of this has no meaning because ultimately, when it hit us, the corona, it hit everybody at the same time. So, what is that? That it is hitting not you and me, but it is hitting humans. So, as a humanity, we must think today about natural resources that we have got, how to deal with them properly by following certain rules. And when you ask me to speak, and as I said, I'm not going to speak to you, we're going to speak to each other. What we call environment is this. So you wanted me to speak on environment, energy, water. Let's look at environment is this. The whole endowment, the huge capital, the big treasure is surviving with a very, very complex ecosystem. And if you play with the ecosystem, anything can happen. We must therefore deal with it in a manner that, as far as possible, go back to the basics of nature. Unlearn something which we thought is the advent of our great conquest of nature. And therefore, going back to the basic is something which should be the fundamental way of learning something from this. That could be one of the best way to deal with any future pandemics or future, I don't know, even pandemic, anything can happen. We don't know. Even before this started, there were a lot of alarm bells which were ringing. I refused to listen to them. When people get a heart attack, doctors tell, you get so many signals from the body. Body always tells you. If I'm falling sick, I know it better. I don't want to ignore it is a different thing. I say, I don't want to accept it because I have to go and attend this meeting. I have to go to this country. I have to do this business. So I don't want to ignore it to my own peril eventually. Same way, nature was giving us warning signals. One of them was climate change. Everybody, all scientists of the world in IPCC were concluding that these are the kind of changes which are happening in nature, maybe resulting into increase in temperature or rise in sea level. All of this is caused by human intervention. Now again, that warning we ignored. We said, what is this? There's some leaders, some countries, some scientists, few of them, scientists, fewer numbers, they're all saying this is all nonsense, humbug. There's nothing like climate change. What are you talking about? But nature was telling us, please follow. I don't want to destroy you because I am your creator. Nature has created all of us. Nature would never like to destroy us. Mother would never like to destroy the child. So Mother Nature didn't want to destroy anybody else, but also us. But we, despite the fact, without accepting that we are from the same family, because ecosystem is one, so we are from the same family. Animals also from our family in a way, and they were came before us. We thought this is all nonsense. I will survive, but I will kill them. So nature, in a way, thought I never created you to kill my other children. I created you for you to survive. I made you have arrangement for you. You can eat some animals, you can eat some grass, you can eat some fruits, you can eat vegetables, but don't destroy the entire thing. You can enjoy the water, but don't try to use it in such a way that all the surface water will go. So we did not listen to that signal. Climate change is a disaster waiting to happen. One of the way that climate change can be dealt with is by dealing with energy. The way we use the energy is going to decide our future. It's a fact that nobody can survive without energy. When the first human being was came on the planet, could he have survived without energy? Could plants, could animals, flora, fauna, can they survive without energy? They also need energy. So energy was provided for. All the survival kit for all the born species on the planet was given to them when they were born on the planet. Like when we travel by plane, the flight crew makes announcement that in a very unlikely event of plane meeting with certain contingencies, maybe landing on water or something else happening, this is what safety precaution you must follow. There is something which is kept under your seat. You take it out so you can survive in the water. What is it? It's survival kit. Sometimes when you go on a trip, we use doctors give you use this. If there is a fever, you take this. Headache, take this. So this is a survival kit. Mother gives to the child when a child is going on a school picnic. Take this whenever you have a problem. Do this. So nature also, as a good mother, as a good guardian, as a good doctor, had given us survival kits. That for you to survive, you'll have everything, water, land, everything. But we started feeling and so. So now problem is energy was also provided for. But the energy that we started using, particularly after the last industrial revolution, last means the first industrial revolution. Now we say that we are in the fourth industrial revolution. All those issues we'll deal some other time. I have certain views on that. I've spoken about it many times on World Economic Forum in Davos. I'm on their some of the groups, leadership groups, where I keep talking about it in a different way. And because I speak different way, think I should also be invited. A different issue. But I'm just saying, after the first industrial revolution, the kind of energy we started using was far, far different than probably nature ever thought it should be used. The so-called fossil fuel energy, how did it, how was it born to begin with? It's a fossilized form of energy. Maybe something was fossil, whether it is big trees or dinosaurs or whatever human had created, has gone below the surface. And because of millions of years of activities, it has turned into what we discovered eventually was oil or its family, gas. We felt that this is what is a solution to all problems. The entire mobility, whether it is through aircrafts, whether it's on land, or even railways, motorcycles, motorbikes, cars, we divide them into the mobility were driven by such fossil fuels. As a result of which we are drawing much, and that energy, the kind of energy we use as a solution, is a cause of problem like climate change. The greenhouse gas emission that is happening by burning that as a fuel, or combustion that happens when you travel, all of this is resulting into excessive greenhouse gas emission which atmosphere cannot absorb. There are carbon sinks, which carbon again is necessary. If a carbon is something which the animals survive on, or rather the plants survive on, so carbon is necessary. Carbon is not a problem in itself. Like our Shastras tell us that there is nothing is a problem if you can take it in a limited form. Don't do excessively. But today we are excesses have exceeded all limits of normal thinking. And therefore, the kind of energy we are using has caused greenhouse gas emission which nature cannot absorb, as a result of which today the carbon sinks are not able to take, whether carbon sinks in the form of forest or carbon sinks in the form of oceans, they are not able to absorb them, and we are in a process of, so the sequestration that it happens is not happening the way it should be. As a result of that, today the temperatures are rising and they will go beyond 2 degrees centigrade, which now 2 degrees centigrade itself is a problem. 2 degrees is not small. If average temperature goes up by 2 degrees centigrade, it's a huge, huge change. Huge. But we have no choice. It's okay, let me accept this. Like sometimes a creditor has to receive 1,000 crores from a person, but he's not able to get 1,000 crores. So you say, okay, at least I'm not going to get any, at least give me 100 crores. Okay, I'm accepting. It's not that he's happy with 100 crores, but he has no choice. So we accepted as a foregone conclusion, no other choice, that 2 degrees, okay. But that 2 degrees itself is a problem. But even to maintain that 2 degrees, you have to do huge changes. And if you don't do that, as I was saying, the nature was already giving us signal, and a very red signal. Serious challenge. When you try to board the flight, the entire airline staff is shouting, last chance, just board, gates closing. Still you don't go, then you will miss the flight. But at least you can take another flight if you miss the flight. But here nature is telling us it's a last warning to you. I cannot help you after this. So that is the signal that is coming to us. And I think we'll have to work on that to reduce the use of fossil fuel energy. We'll have to make sure that we use such energy which was designed by the nature. I was telling you that we, all living beings, can survive only on energy. What was that energy? What is the real energy? It's what comes to us from sun. I always say that sun never gets inside his own home. They never lock down for sun. Never a holiday for sun. No weekly holidays, no daily holidays, no sick leave, no privilege leave, nothing. Paternity leave, maternity leave for the sun, nothing. He comes every day without fail. Every day. Every day. Sometimes you don't see it because of cloud, but sun is there. So sometimes we may say, oh, what is he talking? In Europe, we don't see sun for months together. You don't see doesn't mean sun is not there. Sun is above the clouds. You cannot see it. It's a different thing. But the source of energy, as was designed by nature, is the solar energy. There are many ways we can use solar energy. Whether we can do it through photovoltaics, as we are doing mainly in the world, or should we do it in the form of solar thermal. We are not using it in a large scale as we should be doing for solar thermal. There should be a proposal that if in North Africa, we can use the desert of North Africa, use solar thermal power and generate huge solar energy and use the transmission lines to take that energy to Europe. Probably Europe will be surplus with power. But the problem will be what do you do with nuclear power? Because Europe, some countries like Germany and others may say we don't want nuclear power. But they use nuclear power from France. France has more nuclear power than any other source of power. So plants that have been generating electricity, whether from coal, from gas, or from nuclear sources, or from hydroelectricity, like most of the Scandinavians do in Norway or other places, Sweden and others. So what happens to them? That was a worry. Otherwise, these are solutions are possible. So solar thermal, solar photovoltaic, all that is possible. But again, for that, we'll have to change our thinking. We cannot do this because we accept certain things as given. I don't want to accept that change. If I go to doctor tells me you have to change your regime, complete regime, then only can survive. I tell doctor, please, you are my friend, you know me for so many years. Please, don't tell me about food, That is something I want to. Smoking, please, something I cannot live without it. Drinks, very good. If you do all this, then the doctor says, sorry, boss. It is your life. You live with it and do what you want to do. So if you don't change, the consequences are known. And the doctors know about the patient. Nature knows about our own future. If you want to destroy the entire biodiversity of the world, because climate change is going to destroy everything, not just human beings. I think they deserve to suffer that fate because they are the creator of that problem. But the entire biodiversity which nature has created might also get completely destroyed. The entire biological life may get extinguished. This is something when we say this, we say, oh, we are too alarmist. But we didn't listen to the alarm of the nature. That's why we are meeting this fate today. So today, even on energy, we would have changed the energy mix of the world in a big way. We'll have to bring more of renewables. Again, and I was giving example of in North Africa generating electricity and selling everywhere. It's another model which is again fraught with a problem. Because in that model, you are centralizing everything. In one place you generate and give it to everybody, like we do mega power plants, 4,000, 5,000 in one place. China has got three Ganges River. It is a hydroelectricity project, nothing to do with coal, but still almost 20,000 megawatt, 18,600. Huge. When we generate electricity through renewables, there's a model possible that you can actually generate that electricity locally in a village like India and distribute locally. If you really look at it, what was our own ancient thought in India? What were we taught? Don't do anything beyond your means. My mother will tell me, my grandmother will tell me every day. I thought my grandmother, what she knows. I am so intelligent. I always say that my grandmother was less educated than me, but far, far, far more enlightened than me. She had more wisdom than me, and I think I have knowledge. And in the process of acquiring knowledge, I lost my wisdom. So the best thing that we are told in our own culture, all our shastras, all our knowledge, traditional knowledge, live within your means. What you have, try to live on that. Gandhiji take it to a different level, using the same source of knowledge, of course. He said, make our villages self-reliant, India will develop. The village is growing, India will develop. What does it mean? And if you can generate electricity locally, distribute locally. Dr. Abdul Kalam mentioned about Pura, that urban facilities in rural areas. But what is an urban facility? Can we not create the basic needs of that society locally? If you don't do that today, for example, we say, oh, this is too primitive idea. What is happening today, my friends? We're sitting at home, doing nothing. We have no choice. And everybody is saying, oh, it is some at least some are saying it's a better life. That means this is what people have lived like this. They didn't have cars those days. They didn't have aeroplanes those days. They didn't have the trains. Trains also came after the first industrial revolution. But they survived happily. And they survived. Now the question is yours and my survival today. As a human being survival, human race survival, the entire biodiversity survival. So if you can generate electricity locally, give it to locally, it will solve so many problems. We'll understand the local resources available, and based on that we'll develop. I'll give an example. I'm just making small diversion because I'm not prepared a speech, I'm not reading a speech, I'm just speaking something which I always do. As a commerce industry minister in Narendra Modi's government, I prepared a concept, and actually not prepared is already working. That if you can make each and every district grow by 3 or 4% more than what it is growing today, using the modern parlance of GDP, because sometimes we also get overwhelmed with such ideas that are so relevant today's times, and we always think about them. And I said, if each district can grow by 3% more, India can grow 3% more, because all the 729 districts of India grow by 3% more, India will grow by 3% more. So I called National Council for Applied Economic Research, Indian Institute of Management to work on this. They are already prepared, and work was going on when I became minister. I was a minister. The idea was that let us develop the district based on local resources available. Let me not do in district in Konkan, which incidentally is part of the 6th district that we have started working on, with a district in Tamil Nadu, which has a completely different topography, different culture, different lifestyle. So if I can understand that lifestyle, that culture of that particular district and try to develop it, district will develop, people will be happy because they are not uprooted. They're still living in their own environment. They'll be happy. I just mentioned 3 causes. So I'll just tell you. I went to see that when I was the power minister. I was actually held 10 different cabinet positions, 6 under Vajpayee and 4 under Prime Minister Modi. So I'm very lucky that 2 great leaders of India I could serve under them. I went to see 3 causes when I was the power minister. I was asking them what happened to the people who were displaced. They said they were given a fantastic houses, much bigger than what they had in their own villages. My experience is that you may get a better house, but when you are uprooted from the environment that you operate in, the area that you live in, you're not happy. Recently, I had gone to Wadi Rum forest. That's in Jordan. Asking the person, my wife has written a fantastic article on that. She's an editor and she has been a journalist for 40 years. So she has written a beautiful one. And she asked that question to the person in that desert. What do you want your son to be? He said, my son can study anywhere, but I am telling him, don't go out of the desert. Desert teaches you a lot. Don't stop listening to the sounds of desert. So if you take a person from desert and keep him in the mahal, he's not going to be happy. So if you develop that area, so I was telling about energy, developing that village on the local resources available, first we'll live in harmony with the nature. We'll have energy, which I was saying that we generate energy locally, distribute it locally. Because sun is there in villages, and there are other sources of energy. I'm not getting into the huge issues of energy. I would have loved to do that. Sorry, I've already exceeded my time. I've not even covered water. I've not even covered either of the three subjects properly. Energy, I've started with environment. I've not covered it totally. I've not talked about energy. There are many dimensions to it. But since I already exceeded my time, let me very briefly tell you about water. Because that's the third component of my talk today. Water, like energy, is a basic necessity for survival. In fact, all the three are basic necessities for survival: energy, environment, and water. Incidentally, I've handled all these three positions as a government in the minister. So I set up, after I got little time, I set up the India's first think tank, or probably world's one of the first think tank, dealing with all the three things together. It's called Council for Energy, Environment and Water, CEW. I'm the founding chairman of it. So water is something which you cannot live without it. And water is something which you cannot create. There are some scientists and become enough to tell you you're wrong. Why? Because you can desalinate water. In laboratory, you can create water. As a student, though I'm a student of commerce, still there used to be science classes, where in science laboratory you could see water being created in the laboratory. So yes, I accept. But can we create a water that we need on a scale that we need, or the magnitude that we need, other than what nature has made a provision for? Nature has created a perfect cycle wherein the water is made available to you. Surface water, getting into small little streams, becoming rivers, and even that water goes into the ocean finally, is also performs an ecological function. Because as you know, finally all rivers meet the ocean, right? It's a fact. But when they meet the ocean, the mere force of that flow of river ensures that that ocean water doesn't come inland. And the salinity of the ocean water is stopped at that point. If the rivers don't flow in the same natural flow, if the saline water comes inside, and we have instances of that in some part of India, where the complete fertile land has become uncultivable. The groundwater is contaminated because of salinity. As a result of that, it is no longer potable. So the problem is water is given is a natural flow of water that we have to keep maintaining. I talked about survival kits by the nature. So nature said, I have given you this, but in the extreme event, like the flight crew says, unlikely event of water, the plane landing on water. He said, in very, very unlikely event, which will never happen, I know, but nature feels still, I made a provision for you, groundwater. There is so much of surface water that you will never need anything more if you manage it properly. Including, you don't have enough more numbers of humans than what is necessary. That is, we have already crossed 7.3 billion already. Like I was saying, nature didn't allow anybody to proliferate more than what was intended. There's already another creature, another species which was created to ensure that they will go and reduce the number. Human beings becoming so powerful that who are you to reduce my number? No, the water was given in sufficient quantity. If a Gandhiji had said at that time that what we need, everybody needs, but not for greed. Very famous story that Gandhiji was sitting on the bank of Ganga and tried to use little water to take. So somebody said, Ganga is flowing so much. Why are you using some little water? So much is flowing. He said, this is flowing not for me. There are so many downstream people who have to also enjoy that water. So we forgot that rule, and we thought that what nature has given. So we not only use the entire surface water, but now almost exhausting the groundwater to an extent that the groundwater that India uses for irrigation is 3 to 4 times more than Yangtze River's annual flow. Can you imagine? Yangtze is a mighty river, like our Brahmaputra. And that water we are using for groundwater every year. Finished. Nature must be really thinking what kind of species I created. He has finished not only what I given, finished everything else. What is he doing? Is he understanding that he cannot create anything which once it got exhausted. So water is a big problem. We really need to work on the water management carefully because we cannot create it, we cannot import it. Technically, again, I will be wrong by saying you don't import the Malaysia export water to Singapore. But water, water is something which we cannot live without and we cannot import, we cannot make it. The only way we can deal with water is to manage it properly. So dealing with water issue is water management issue. How to use limited resources for so many different needs. Israel has shown the way, but Israel didn't have anything, that's why they had to manage it. We have plenty, but we cannot manage it. So we have to work on our water management strategies. We should be very nature oriented, which are nature compliant. Like when you travel, people will say, do you have a document which allows you to travel? Do you have vaccination? If you're going into Latin America or some other countries where there is a yellow fever, have you taken the vaccination? So we must have strategy. So therefore, then only you can travel. So you can use water only when we have a strategies to deal with it in a way that will allow us to use it on a sustainable basis. Whatever nature had intended the use of that, we must put it into use in that particular way only. We need to keep water not only for our own use, for nature. Nature also has a claim on that water. If nature dies, water will never come to you. I was saying water cannot be created, but nature actually has made a creation of water. There's a complete eco cycle which allows the water creation. Forests are one of the very important components of that. In fact, the best freshwater resources in India even today are all those get born into the forest. So there is a lot of linkages. Ecosystem is a very complex issue. What you call it environment is something which we learn in one university is not environment. It's a very complex law of nature. It's a very different forces which operate, which create this ecosystem. We have absolutely no ability to recreate an ecosystem. And if I don't have ability to recreate it, I don't have a right to destroy it. And we are set to destroy it for the last 2 decades, and we didn't listen to the signal that was coming in, and we are facing this problem. So, friends, all the three issues are so important, but so linked. You cannot separate energy from environment. You cannot separate water from energy or environment. It's a, if you really look at it, use Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, the Trinity, which will allow us to survive properly. Any imbalance, the Shiva, the destroyer, Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, who maintains the balance. All of them know each other's limitation. They work in tandem. Nobody tries to use his influence and tries to outsmart the other. My friends, each one of us worship, at least most of us worship Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Or all human beings worship somebody, some god, some religion. But even before the religions were born, the human beings were also worshipping another religion. In some parts of tribal area, they do that even today. And what is that religion? Worshipping the nature. All the religions today, and particularly the religion that I belong to, Hindu religion, we all therefore pay so much of importance to nature. My mother, in the month of Shravan, would tell me that go and get these 5 different leaves. That time, of course, it was possible because where I was staying, there were some trees. But by doing that, she used to teach me about botany, biology, by telling how to pick up one particular. So I used to know about a tree. So we always worshipped the nature, and we believed that our ethos, our culture, was inseparable from the laws of nature. My friends, we are lost out on many things. Good part of biodiversity is gone, but probably there is some chance left. If you want to really prove the prophecies of doom wrong, we have a chance in our hand. Let's work in a way that we save the nature, follow the laws of nature, work in particular way that we can have the possibility of ensuring that we can keep whatever nature has given us intact. And nature never says don't use it. It says first for you. Use it, take fruit, otherwise the fruit is going to fall on the land and going to get. So it doesn't matter, take it, but use it in such a way, as our Ayurveda tells us, in a limited way, in a sustainable way. Sustainability word is born now. But we were told for few hundred years ago by our own Ayurveda practitioners that there is nothing wrong in eating anything. You can eat anything, provided you eat in particular quantity. Eat something which is there designed by you by nature. But today what we do, we keep it in cold storage. Mango is to be eaten in this particular month, but we'll keep in cold storage so I can even eat in winter. So all of this, we can always, nature has given us enough, nothing wrong in enjoying it, but enjoy it with a purpose of understanding why we need it. We always say that the tribals had a symbiotic relationship with forest. They would never destroy forest because they knew that a forest is their mother, father, and everything else. But we said, no, what is this nonsense? We'll remove the tribals from forest and I will start destroying the forest so that I can create infrastructure, I can create agriculture. In the process, we have created this problem. So we have a chance to live in harmony with nature even today. But for that, as I said, unlearn wrong things, learn the right things, follow the right path, change track, work by respecting what has been given to us by my mother, yours and mine, and everybody's mother is the same, only one mother. In India, we say Bharat Mata. And that is true, that all of us are children of Bharat Mata, one mother. But all of us have a mother for all the humanity as a whole, all biodiversity as a whole. And that's Mother Nature. Can I ever make my mother happy if I destroy her progeny? Kunti was not happy that the world didn't know about her first child, but she knew. And therefore, she didn't want my one set of my children to fight my other son. So, can mother be happy if I'm destroying the biodiversity it is created and still will be happy with me? Is it possible? So, let's worship the mother. Once again, thank you. I have exceeded far more time. I was supposed to speak only for, I think, 45 minutes, but I have spoken for more than 1 hour. I didn't realize it. I'm sorry, but I really look forward to working with my friends in Vigyan Bharati. I worked with them many, many years. And they are my very good friends. But the finest people that I met are the ones who run Vigyan Bharati. They are only one motivation for doing all this. That use science, knowledge for making life better. Use that knowledge of science which we knew earlier and modify it maybe a little bit, because nature also has absolutely no objection to that you keep changing it, because nature also changes. But change it without changing fundamental nature. Like the Supreme Court had said, you cannot change the basic structure of the Constitution of India. The same thing, don't change the basic structure of nature. I think we'll do that. Vigyan Bharati will be playing a very key role into that. I'm really happy that I could speak, because I never prepared something, but I'm very sure. I hope I didn't bore you, but I really look forward to working with you. Thank you very much. Jai Vigyan Bharati. Jai Hind.